All right, Madam Chairman, I'm done.
Becky? All right, I will, call a special meeting, December the 21st, order. And I will ask, Madam Clerk, is there any amendment to the agenda?
No, ma'am.
Okay, then I'll ask for a motion to approve the agenda, please.
Motion to approve.
Second. Thank you, all in favor? All right, we'll begin the discussion.
Okay, yes. Good morning, everybody. Apologize for the delay. And we'll get started, but I'll go ahead first and just kind of do a roll call. Kim, I'll tell you who's here, and then I'll let the people in the audience kind of let their names be known. And then we'll probably start with letting, if the board is okay with it, we'll let the sheriff start, let him do the presentation. And just so you know, you should find in your reminders the two things that we're going to be looking at will be, you should have a paper-clipped document that says at the top Sheriff's Office pay proposal. It should be in the binder. If not, we'll make sure you get a copy like that right there. If Lynn doesn't have one, we'll
Or it's in the packet.
it should be in that packet.
That's it. We had looking on.
Then the next one, Ms. Misty will go over this one. Will be the next one, the 911. That'll be after the sheriff's first. So, Ms. Kim, we have Charlie from the paper, Lynn Cody, Commissioner Lynn Cody, Chairman Ms. Connie Orr, Commissioner Dale Wiggins, Jason Marino, County Manager, Ms. Becky Garland, our Finance Officer. And then, Sheriff, you'll let us know your name, kind of speak out so we can hear you.
Sure, for this, Sheriff Grant County.
JJ Wood, Chief Captain.
Misty Amber, Graham County Police Agent.
Jonathan Allison, Detention Officer.
Detective Patrick Cable, Graham County Sheriff's Office.
Allison, Director of Detention,
Outstanding. Did you get all that, Ms. Kim?
I did, thank you.
All right. All right, so unless there's is there anything you guys want to talk about discussion-wise before we hear from the sheriff? I'd like to let him know, is that okay? Okay. Sheriff, Chris, if you want to present?
Just say thank you for coming, Sheriff Chris.
Well, thank the board of commissioners for having us this morning and allowing us to present these proposals. I have two proposals to present this morning. One regarding to getting our pay competitive with surrounding counties. And if you'll notice in your package, and of course the second one is to talk about the American Relief Plan money, COVID pay as it's referred to. But the first one, on the first page, our Sheriff's Office pay proposal. At the top of the page, it has our current and our proposed hourly wage. And the way we came up with this was we got copies of surrounding agencies. We got Cherokee County and Macon County and Clay County. And as you review those, you can see that we put ours kind of in the middle, an average of those other three agencies. And that's just so that we can attempt to be competitive with other agencies. Now, of course, everybody knows that Cherokee Tribal Police has the highest pay and best benefits, and there's no way any of us can ever compete with them. But if we can compete just with surrounding counties, that will help us to retain and recruit the best quality officers. And the thing I preach to my people all the time is think about when you go to a house to take a break and enter report. I want you to work that as if you went home that evening yourselves, and it was your house broke into, your belongings that were stolen. And think about this. If you go home this evening and your house, garage, shed has been broken into, your guns, your belongings, your tools, your lawnmower, whatever it is, gets stolen. Do you want a deputy showing up at your house that has had no training, that's not been to school, don't know how to do nothing, can't take out charges because they're not certified yet? They have to have another certified deputy come out or go on the scene with them to help work this case, because this rookie officer that's uncertified, not been to any types of training or specialty trainings, such as crime scene processing or investigation schools, they ain't gonna have a clue of what to do when they come to your house. And I know just me personally, I don't have a lot, but if somebody comes and steals my garden hose out of my shed, that's my garden hose. And I want something done about it, and I want it worked, same as if they stole my TV, my guns, or whatever. So that's the reason we're trying to get our pay at just a competitive rate. And over the next few pages, you can see for each position that we're just putting in for around the average of what these other three counties are doing. On the third page in your packet, should be the third page, I have a breakdown of statistics. Now, I in no way am here to slam or anything with the paramedics or the EMS service. I just list this to compare that I feel like our people are just as important as the EMS department people are. And as you can see, our basic law enforcement training is 726 hours plus 240 more hours of field training. And each officer is required to do a minimum of 24 hours a year in service. Paramedic school is 760 hours plus 240 hours of field training in the back of a truck, and 100 hours of in service in a 4-year period. So as you can see, the training requirements are almost identical for a paramedic and for a basic certified law enforcement officer. Now this part of this proposal is to go along with the up in the pay proposal and also for the COVID relief money proposal. And this is our argument that I consider the entire sheriff's office personnel, including the detention center and the sheriff's office. I'll argue that we are essential frontline workers. 50% of the sheriff's office had COVID at one point or another, which left others to have to work 12-hour shifts for 10 to 12 days straight just to cover for the ones that were out with COVID, including myself. I caught COVID. And those officers had no days off. They were working what I refer to as port and starboard duty section. Some of the officers were covering the day shift, some covering the night shift, and they had to go 10 to 12 straight days without a day off. Up at the detention center, we've had, is it 3 or 4 COVID outbreaks in the jail? Okay. But almost 90% of all the jail staff also got COVID. And during that time, when the most number of jailers were out with COVID, I had to pull deputies off the road to help man the jail. because we didn't have enough jail staff to man the jail. So deputies also have to respond to over 40% of EMS calls first. And that includes all unknown 911 EMS hang-up calls or unable to talk. If any one of us in here walked out in the parking lot or walked out of our house in our driveway and had a heart attack, stroke, had a major injury, and you're able to dial 911, but you're not able to talk for whatever reason, that ambulance will not come to where you're at until we respond first and make sure the scene is safe and it's not a dangerous environment. And Trish will back that up. She knows that's policy for the EMS and for the dispatch center. So you may not be in any type of dangerous environment. You may just not be able to communicate and talk about what's happened to you. So we go first. The ambulance will get close, but it'll stage until we call in and say the scene is safe and secure. It's just a medical issue, come on in. That also covers all suspicious calls, dangerous calls such as drunks, fights, domestics, and all drug-related overdose calls. The benefits for this proposal would make us more competitive with surrounding agencies, better retention of staff currently employed, and would of course boost overall morale in the office of the sheriff. The next part talks about the COVID for American Relief Plan bonus money. And what I have attached here is Macon County, the way they did theirs from Cherokee County, they gave their people, all county employees, an $800 lump sum bonus. And they said they just required all their people essential. Macon County did a $2 an hour premium pay that's paid every 6 months, total of $2,000 until the end of 2024. Swain County did a $1.50 an hour premium pay every 6 months, up to $14,000 until the end of 2024. But their policy, I'm sorry, go
Is
ahead.
that all employees in Macon County and Sway County?
Yeah.
Totally, okay, thank you.
And kind of going back to Cherokee County, they used a lot of their money for equipment, vehicles, I think some salary positions. They had a couple of narcotic officers. They used some of it for that also in Cherokee County. But the next page is the actual current hourly wage, current salary, and the proposed hourly and proposed salary for all the positions in the sheriff's office. And you can see, and I spoke with Becky about this didn't cover FICA, insurance, or retirement, but it only came out to a $21,811 difference without the retirement and the FICA added into it. But I think Becky was working on those numbers to show.
That adds, about 18%, right at 20%. If you take into consideration, that adds about $5,800 a year.
The next page is the detention center pay proposal, and we did the same thing. We listed the positions: detention officer, sergeant, lieutenant, and captain. It shows their current salary along with the proposed salary, And then it shows the comparable surrounding counties, Cherokee, Macon, and Clay County. And again, you can see that we didn't try to get ahead of these agencies or above what their pay is. We tried to come in somewhere in the average range of it. And then the next page is for the detention center staff. It shows their current hourly, current salary, and then the proposed hourly and new salary. And the difference in that in the budget is $28,705. Now the next page, couple pages, shows what a lot of sheriff's offices across the state are going to for their merit/experience pay scale. I learned this at the annual sheriff's conference, that it was kind of a scattergun effect among a lot of agencies, how they were doing their pay scale and proposal for pay scales. A lot of the sheriff's offices are shifting over to what sheriff's training and standards already has in place. And that's where an officer can apply for and obtain their intermediate certificate or their advanced certification. And you can see the requirements on these two pages of what it takes to get an intermediate certification or an advanced certification. And our proposal for this is after an officer stays for several years and attains enough training points or college, they're eligible for an intermediate certificate. And once they get that, we propose that they get a 5% meritorious increase on their salary. Once they stay several more years and attain enough educational or training points based on either associate, bachelor's degree, or years of experience and training points, they're eligible to apply for the Sheriff's Training and Standards Advanced Certification. That's the highest certification any officer can have in the state of North Carolina. And we propose that the officers be paid an 8% increase of their salary once they attain advanced certification. And advanced certification requires several years of experience and multiple training points. And you can see on these two pages, it breaks it all down and tells you. An example for intermediate certification has accumulated 39 training points, 20 law enforcement training points, and at least 8 years of experience. And it goes from there. You can get 69 training points and 6 years of experience. Or if you have a degree, 99 points and 4 years of experience. Or if you have an associate degree or bachelor's degree and 4 years of experience. And 20 hours of training counts as 1 point. So you can see it takes a lot of training points and years of experience to get to this. So that's our proposal for, and again, a lot of the sheriff's offices across the state going to this versus having to negotiate or navigate through a pay scale system. This one's basically already in place by Sheriff's Training and Standards. Keeps the county from having to come up with a pay scale system based on meritorious or years of experience or whatever. Because like I said, a lot of the agencies across the state have a scattergun way of doing their meritorious raises years of experience. This one would be standardized based on the sheriff's training and standards commission. The next few pages is Cherokee County's classification and pay plan for all different positions. And the pages after that is Macon County's pay plan for all their positions. And then we have Clay County's pay plan. And that shows you where we got our figures from. When we were doing the segment pay proposed. The next page is Swain County's actual COVID pay policy. It's very in-depth. It spells it out in detail of how they're paying this $1.50 per hour up to $14,000 over a 3 to 4 year period here. The last page of that policy even lays out their actual premium pay periods as to when it is. And one of the things that's unique about it is if an officer don't work that 6-month period, they don't get the COVID pay. If they leave the department midway through the 6-month period, they forfeit their COVID pay for that 6-month period. The last thing that I have here is back last year, when we were so short-handed, Asheville PD from January through the end of September lost 96 officers. Most of it was due to their city council policies, and a lot of their officers left. We sent out a statewide recruitment message on this website, and I reached out and also tried to recruit some of these officers that left Asheville PD, because you had 5, 10, 15, 20-year veteran officers with very advanced qualifications. And I'd say 60% of them were very interested until they heard what our pay was. And then they wasn't interested anymore. But the sales pitch was our area, beautiful county, you like to hunt, fish, hike, things of that nature. And we had tremendous either phone calls, emails, Facebook posts, or just website posts. A lot of people contacted us via Facebook, and were chomping at the bits, wanting to come to a more laid-back area compared to Buncombe County or Asheville PD until they seen what our pay was. So that's my proposal for adjustment in our salaries, COVID relief monies, and meritorious / experience pay scale. I'll take any questions or anything that anybody may have.
Here's a good one, no Walmart in the area is the most appealing thing they found.
Yeah.
Those are some interesting comments, Jerry, thanks for sharing those with us. I don't have any questions.
Anybody else have anything? I'll do my very best to answer anything.
Well, I don't have a question, Terry. You and I sit down and talk, and, I agree with you that, if somebody comes and steals my garden hose, I want to know who it was, and I want my hoe back.
Right.
Because it's a principle of it, it's not necessarily what is taken, but it's that somebody would violate my privacy, my property, that I'd probably give to them, if they would come to me in need and say, I really need this.
Absolutely.
I'd say, here, give you a sack of taters while you're here out of my garden.
Sure.
So, and whatever it is, I want good quality people at EMS, I want good quality people up there at dispatch, I want good quality people at the sheriff's office, at the jail. And, the reality is we've operated here for so long on this attitude that we can't afford to do these things. We've got ourselves in a situation now where we cannot afford not to do these things. And I don't think it's going to get better. I read different things on Facebook last week on from Cherokee PD. In 2 days' time, they picked up nearly 3 pounds of meth. I don't know how much heroin that they got, multiple people. This is not 45 world. This is, I applaud any of you that are out there wearing badge and having to deal with some of the people that you may confront. And I guess part of it, to me, the word could be, you don't ever know. When you stop the car, if it's a preacher or if it's a maniac. So, I think I hope this will do what we can do. Because I think it's a necessity.
And I appreciate, like, when we met, the plan that you had and came up with on how to pay for it, salary wise. I thought was a great idea.
If we can squeeze it out of the budget somehow, I'd be glad to do that, but, whatever we have to do is where I'm at with it. For everybody concerned with the position. I want to feel safe in my house. I want to know if I call at midnight that I can count on somebody qualified to be there.
Right.
All right, thank you. I don't have anything.
Anybody else have anything?
I just wanted to say thank you for all the hard work that you guys have done to bring this presentation together. And as we discussed a couple of weeks ago, I wanted to do a little work, and I did this for communications as well, just about to research what our turnover rates are in these public safety departments. And I took it from December 1 of 2020 through November 30, because I wanted to have very recent data. The turnover rate in the sheriff's department's been 40%.
Right.
You guys already know this. The turnover rate in the jail's been 25%. So we all know that turnover is very expensive. It's lost productivity, it's cost of retraining, it's a multiple of many things that it costs. And it's overtime because you don't have enough staff and they're having to do double shifts. And you basically take the cost of your wages and benefits for that period of time and apply that rate to that 40% or 25%. And then you multiply that by a multiplier based on, what the level of competence or, ability or education or what have you, training, institutional knowledge. The lowest is about a 1.5 on that. And I just was very conservative to figure out, okay, well, let's take the 1.5. The annual cost for the sheriff's department for turnover would be about $725,000.
More than the increase in what is being recommended.
Absolutely. And then for the jail, it's about $230,000. So you're looking at $1 million right there that turnover in these two departments cost. And I'm kind of taking some of Misty's thunder, but while I'm talking about it, you know, thankfully this year, her staff's kind of stabilized. But the year before was a nightmare to try to get staff. So I just said, well, the best case scenario, it's kind of stabilized. Her turnover rate was 21%. You do that multiplication, that's about $145,000 to $150,000 a year, which is going to be higher than what her presentation is too, just to give the board and the public a frame of reference.
And the, kind of touching on what Becky just said, turnover rate, it was probably a couple, 2 or 3 instances that were disciplinary related, but the rest of it, was people leaving for better paying jobs. And, so that again goes, I can't do nothing about that. When they walk in and turn in a 2-week notice and say, well, I've got to do a better job. And I'll throw this one thing out there. Right now, starting pay for a deputy, I think was $15.50 an hour. I went through Kentucky Fried Chicken a week ago, and they had a big sign up there posted at Murphy, $17 an hour. Well, I don't think a deputy is required to have about 1,000 hours of training for basic certification. I don't think it takes 1,000 hours to teach me to cook chicken. So,
And they probably had a signing bonus too, did they
they
not?
had a sign-on bonus, they had tuition assistance at Kentucky Fried Chicken.
I don't care if it is, make you look good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is that.
Anything else?
No, this is very comprehensive.
It just makes sense.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sheriff.
We've watched it. I've been on the social services board since 2014. And when I first got on that board, before you used there, it was like a revolving door. I mean, you'd see them at one meeting and go to the next meeting and they're gone. And so, and then when Lynn and I first started as commissioners back in 1994, every crew of commissioners that came in fired everybody that worked for the county if they were a different political group. And so we started putting things in place then to try to stop that, because it's expensive. Put somebody in a job and train them and get them doing good, and then 2 or 3 years down the road, they're gone, and you got to start this process again.
And your margin for error with new employees.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Has consequences.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying it's all monetary, but a good portion of it is.
Well, our tax collection rate in 1994, 95 was like 75%. You know, these days it's 97%, and that, you know, and that's the difference. Is get people in there and train them and let them do the job. So, all right, thank God, I'm gonna shut up already. Sometimes I'm like my mom. Misty. Sorry, guys, not just.
No, that's fine. Absolutely. We're all here, we're one county. Team Greg. Which would be this one right here, Commissioners, if you wonder, should we do the one with the #1 communications on the front?
Yeah, Misty Henry, 911 Communications, everybody, that's not familiar. And I want to start off again by thanking you guys, as a board, for entertaining this and having this, meeting for us.
I need Misty to talk to the microphone.
Thank you. For us to, opportunities for us to get together and, work through how to distribute these ARPA funds and give you guys some needed information. You know, anything we can provide and educate each other is always a good thing. So I appreciate that opportunity. Listening to Jerry, in his presentation, a lot of what he just said and went through is pretty much the same information you're gonna get from me, in a little bit of a different format. I done a PowerPoint, behind the information that we were able to get put together. So I'll just go through these, slides, and with slide 1, I want to talk just a little bit about our teamwork and accomplishments here in Graham County and that dispatch. And I started out just saying that most successful projects are accomplished with a team effort. And that's something that I've learned very well in the past 5 or 6 years, with some of the things that 911's been involved with. Graham County as a team has had several big accomplishments in the 911 department. We were able to implement a 12-hour schedule, was adopted for our dispatchers, which has benefited them by giving each full-time employee rotating weekends off. That was a big ask, and a big deal for our telecommunicators. We talked a little bit about turnover, and about 3 years ago, I had roughly half of my staff turnover, because the major issue at that point was that schedule. They worked every weekend and had for years and years and years in that dispatch seat. So together, we were able to get together. It took about a year for us to figure out how to make it work, but with added knowledge from other departments and with Rebecca, we were able to sit down and try to figure out a way to get it to happen here the most cost-efficient way that we can. And that was a big success, and it happened because of everybody from commissioners down, and that's just the example of teamwork there. We've successfully kept essential county departments, including 911 dispatch, running while being short-staffed through this pandemic. We all know what we went through with the pandemic. From top to bottom, it was a team effort, and it was a hard effort to get through that. But we successfully done that so far, and we're continuing to do it as the pandemic rolls on. Who knows what's going to come out tomorrow? We've created 2 new pay grade levels for Telecommunicator 2 and Telecommunicator 3 to allow for advancement and staff development within the department. This has put our department back on track after staff turnover to enhance the service we provide to the public, as well as our first responders and law enforcement. Okay, the next slide is going to talk about some of our goals. In 2020, I submitted a strategic plan to the 911 board. And those of you that are not familiar with the 911 board, 911 board governance is a governance of the 911 funds that each county gets. It's a substantial amount of money. I think we get somewhere around $77,000 per year right now as our allocation. And this board is put together to govern how that money is spent. There's strict regulations on it, and Rebecca and I work together to make sure that we're spending that money and getting the most benefit from it. So in doing that, it was necessary for us to realize that we needed to put some strategy behind what we're doing and get the most for those dollars. I worked through that strategic plan in 2020 as I did my telecommunicator manager's course. Learned a lot from that course, got a lot from it, and we were able to get a plan, submit it to the board to give them a roadmap of how we're going to make our service better here in Graham County. The ultimate goal is through training, evaluation, structure, and much needed pay scale adjustment that we're able to effectively recruit and retain quality employees at Graham County 911. And the last statement there, we just want Graham County 911 Communications to be a job that you can build a career on. We're very proud of it. We love what we do, and we want everybody to feel like that it's a place that you can come to and build your career. All right, your next slide is going to be obstacles. Just wanted to highlight some of the things that we're still dealing with. And one of the biggest obstacles in the way of achieving our goals, unfortunately, lies within our pay scale. Today's workforce no longer places as much value on benefit packages and retirement as they have in the past. It seems like when I talk to recruits or applicants, they look at that dollar amount that they're going to get paid. And I try to explain to them the benefit, of your retirement, your health insurance, all the good things that the county has. And we have a great package here that, we can sell, but I'm finding that it's not accepted as well as it was in the past with our workforce today.
Is that younger workforce?
It is.
Something particular.
And we end up being a training ground or a stepping stone for someone to go to another agency to make more money. Since 2018, we've been consistently short-staffed. We lost 4 dispatchers, as I was describing earlier, that year, and since we lost several more. And at least six of those employees have went to other dispatch agencies to work to make more money. So they've not gotten out of the field per se. They like the job and they're good at it. I think we do a great job training people, and these other agencies like our trainees. So, unfortunately, that's where about half my staff has went. Lastly, staff morale is in a huge need of a boost. Everything that we've worked through, the constant turnover, the pandemic, it's just taking a huge toll on everybody's morale. 911 staff is still short. We need a couple more part-time. The full-time slots we have been able to fill, but I had to switch around schedules and fill those slots with a seasoned telecommunicator and a trainee, which is a little bit more of an obstacle when you look at it and you're doing the work. For a new telecommunicator, it's been taking anywhere from about 3 to 6 months of on-the-job training before most of them can successfully be that second person per shift. Up until then, it's a 3-person shift until you can get that person that training that they need to be able to effectively be a second person. Due to the 24/7 scheduling, the work and time that it takes to achieve your certifications, some applicants are not even interested if they have to work weekends and if they have to work nights. The training pay is even less than what is going to be represented in the pay scale study here. It comes in around $10.36 for that first year, or up until they achieve their training certification and they're on the job training. And unfortunately, when you tell people that, people that were interested seem to lose interest. They can make more money, like we said, at a store, a restaurant, whatever the job may be. Your next page is going to be a direct salary comparison. And I took these numbers by reaching out to the PSAPs in our community, in our area, to see what their dispatcher starting pay rate is for a trained telecommunicator. Now, I was a little bit surprised in that I knew that Swain and Graham County were about the same, but Jackson County comes in just $1 above what we're paying here.
That's interesting.
It
I
is.
didn't expect that.
Me either. That kind of surprised me. But I did reach out to Miss Belinda at Jackson County, and they are actively working on getting that up to what the closest of the Western North Carolina average is, which is going to be represented in that second to the last line. That's the average for North Carolina, Western North Carolina region. And then we have the national average on there as well. Your next page is just going to be a graph that just lets you look at the starting pay rate and the top out pay rate for each county. It just puts it in a little bit different format so you can see. Your next slide does the same thing. This graph represents the starting hourly wage per county. And again, you'll see that Graham County, Jackson County, and Swain County are very close in that pay scale.
Swain County is correcting theirs with
ARPA money, yes. And the figure that I have gotten,
through 2024.
that's what I was told, yeah. And the information that I had received from Swain County 911 was a little bit different. She sent that to me at $2 per hour, but if you have that document there, I'm sure that it follows whatever Jerry has provided with their plan. But, you know, what to take out of that is that both Jackson and Swain are actively doing something to raise that pay rate. One by ARPA money. Jackson County has done a pay scale study countywide and expected to get an increase in January. They weren't sure exactly how much. But she did tell me that they were hoping and planning to come in somewhere between Haywood, and Macon around $17, $18 an hour. And that's what is stated on that next slide, just what Jackson County was expecting to get from their pay scale study, as well as what Swain County had told me that they were doing with the ARPA funds. So I fear that if Graham County does nothing, that we'll continue to lose our trained folks. They're going to go to these other agencies. We've lost 6 dispatchers since 2018 to other centers. That's more than half of my full-time staff that we've had to retrain. It takes money, time, and effort to replace these employees, and sometimes you never lose that or get back that knowledge base that has went out the door. It's just hard to quantify. So the next slide is the proposal. I just proposed that increasing the telecommunicator pay by at least about $3 an hour will allow us to be at a more compatible rate. It'll still have us falling below what that regional average is for Western North Carolina. But just like Jerry said, I feel like it'll put us in a place where we're able to compete with some of these agencies that are surrounding us. Closing thoughts, I just wanted to reiterate that dispatchers, although we're behind the scenes and not seeing a whole lot, we are truly the first point of contact with your 911 emergency calls. We're essential employees that sit directly within public safety. And our county dispatch has been blessed in many, many ways. Through combined effort, we successfully implemented the new schedule, added the new pay scales. These are big accomplishments, but our job isn't done. And we need to adjust the pay rate and invest in our dispatchers so that we can train and retain our best employees. And all this can only be accomplished by your support and your help. And I thank you this morning for allowing us to have this time. And I'll entertain any questions.
I don't have any. See, that was very comprehensive as well, so thank you for the presentation.
And I also included in the packet a copy of that strategic plan, just to give you an idea of where we're headed and where we want to be.
I don't have any questions, Misty, but I do want to say that I very much appreciate everything that you and your staff does. And I'm going to pat you on the back a little bit. I've watched you over the last 5 years, and I'm very proud of the manager that you've become.
I have good employees and I have great staff. And nothing, that we do here, we can do without those folks. My heart's in it, I feel like y'all know that. Their heart's in it as well, and I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you for the work that you did on that new facility we got up there. I know that was a joint effort with you and Becky. And I heard from Becky primarily Misty.
She did most of the heavy lifting. I was ready to check.
It's a beautiful center for us. Thank you for taking the initiative and doing the work, put the hours in to get that grant.
Thank you. It was a lot of work. We had a great team on it, and it went great. I'm off on one just about every time I say that. Thank you.
Missy forgot one thing in the training she was talking about. She got her certification as a PSAT manager this past year too. She's done very well.
Congratulations.
Thank you, Ms. Misty, very good, very good. Is there anybody else that would like to, does anybody have any more questions at all? Anybody else would like to make a statement? I want to open the floor up, just move into the discussion.
I know Wayne is on her way.
Okay.
She wanted to make a presentation.
Okay, we'll Juanita. Juanita's on the way. And I'll put this out while we wait to her, as we move into the discussion side of it. It's important, and I know there was a lot of questions as to EMS and some of the nurses got some pay early on. And I'm appreciative that the county employees and even the people in the county that kind of was a little bit patient for us, knowing that there's always, and even you can ask anybody with the state, there still isn't a clear rule book. it's getting much more focused as to what we can do with these funds. Miss Becky spent more time than me on the calls and the meetings. I'm able to get on when I can, obviously, for various reasons. I learned some things this Tuesday that we're finding out that, and this is for a frame of reference also for the commissioners to consider when we go into the discussion. Obviously, we've all talked about what the sheriff's office and detention and even transit and what they will, and I'm talking ARPA strictly, because obviously your salaries need to go where they need to go. I think there's no question we'd love to pay everybody more money, but what you guys do every day is invaluable. But I'm talking strictly ARPA. They should be considered in the same realm as the EMS and the nurses for what your exposure is. We know, I've talked to detention, and we know what the detention officers have gone through, and we deal with what they, the outbreak basically in there. But it also was informational for me to sit through some of the ARPA meetings, in that our other counties for the premium, our other county employees for the premium pay, which would include communications, could also be eligible for some premium pay. And that's what we were determining as we sit through these. So it's important, it was important for us to learn more about the funding as it goes through. So that would be our recommendation, is let us work on, and as we get into the discussion, more about seeing a broader base for the employees that all worked through this, that were also on the front lines of what they were doing, because they get qualified too.
You can look at the different ways the other counties are spending our funds, and you see quickly that there's no rule set in stone. So the flexibility, I really am appreciative of, and we hope to move forward and do a really fair and good job on the rest of our work here.
And the good news, to dovetail on what Jason said, the good news is the federal government, they said, well, we're going to give you the final ruling October 21st, and October 21st came and went. And so a couple of weeks ago, they finally said, as long, look at it broad, if you read it and determine that, yeah, it's all employees, then, and you interpret it that way, and you document, and you do all your due diligence, and you've made your decisions based on the best information you can get. If we come along later in that final rule and say, no, we only meant these departments, they're not gonna hold us liable. And that's huge, because that gives, like as Commissioner Moore says, it gives us the flexibility we need to do what's best and to really work with what the true intent of the law was. And it's usually when people start nitpicking and splitting hairs that it gets real complicated, that we just need to look at what the intent was and hang our hat and do our documentation. They won't do this. That made me sleep better.
And I think along the lines of what, and this Chairman Moore said, listening to, there were some presentations on Tuesday with some of the other counties, Jackson and Macon, and like the sheriffs alluded to. And I think that's a good thing for us to maybe consider, would be, instead of adding like $1 or $2 to their wage for X amount of time, and then when it goes back to their hourly wage, people start getting dependent on that. Maybe we look at more of like what you had said, Cherokee County, $1 or $2 on the hour, and do like a quarter. If they were doing 6 months, maybe us do like a quarterly thing and have that money added to that. Like you said, if they were here and available for that, then it'd be like a pay for that quarter, and each quarter a little bit amount. And that seemed to work good for a couple of counties when they talked about doing that. So something for us to consider.
It's always a hardship to have to operate on less money than you are accustomed to getting in your regular paycheck. So any way we can soften that, I would want to take a hard look at that. I get used to spending everything.
And I think if we can take the opportunity to help as many and if not all county employees with what we can, that's a great approach to try to look at.
And if you spread it out, then that allows us to, because you have to have it obligated by 2024 and spend by 2026, but by spreading it out, it allows for incentives for people to stay, so they get that money, number one. So we keep these people on staff, and also it spreads the money too, because we get our second tranche in May, and we may not be able to do everything we want to do now, but we can spread it and use the money over time.
As it comes in.
Yes.
So to facilitate what we feel like we need to be able to do in a better manner, we will be dependent on upcoming funds as well. Does that make sense?
So that salary be compensated after that money is gone into the regular budget?
We haven't done that determination yet, I don't think.
See, that's where when, just like, the make mistake was that individual gets used to that pay, and at that pay time, the pay cuts, then automatically they're upset, because then they want the county to pick up that additional pay. Like Jason was talking about, if you take and just give them the bonus, that way you know it's gonna be there. But when it's out because if we take and we go back up to the normal rate that you're currently making, that's gonna be a hardship on the people of the county, because the county's gonna have to, we'll have to take and raise the millage rate to meet that requirement. And that's just an additional money that's coming out of people's pocket. So that's.
I'm sorry, I've tried to be really quiet, but,
Yeah,
so I have some questions and some things, and I have to say that I'm not speaking on behalf of the office I work in. It's just I have a lot of people come and talk to me and ask me questions and seek suggestions, and I've done a lot of research on this, but during that session with EMS, when they had their money, the COVID relief funds or ARPA funds. Part of the reason that Commissioner Eller said was, I feel like they deserve a maximum amount because they knew they were calling COVID patients and they had to stay in a vehicle with them for a specific amount of time. Maybe not verbatim what he said, but for the most part. I just want to give this for some perspective is Grant County Jail is probably smaller than Swain County Emergency Room, or about the same size. And then you throw on top of that with other agencies not keeping our inmates. So you've got sometimes 20 people in there and they're all popping positive for COVID. You have hospitals that won't accept them because they don't have bed space and they don't have room. So you have a small unventilated area where officers are having to act as nurses on site, which is what makes basic EMTs, nurses and things like that on the triangle from OSHA, from moderate, extreme to really extreme risk, which was what their basis was for those months of having to separate them out of who gets what. And I understand that you guys can pick that and switch it out. It seems like Grant County Jail was operating kind of like an off-site hospital. And your officers are also stuck outside, just like an ambulance is stuck outside the hospital waiting on somebody to do the intake at an emergency room. Because, well, I mean, we don't have space here. Our facility's small. I know all of y'all have been in there and seen that. So I think that would put every single officer and detention officer at the extremely high risk rate. Because even when they did have to do these transports, when the COVID patients got to where they had to transport, they would have to sit in the hospital and wait just the same. So it's just food for thought, because they can't run away from the virus. There's 2 air conditioners, and that's the only ventilation system that they have in a small area. So I think that would put them in a different level.
I think it'll miss that comparison. If you would just do the run into that comparison one more time, Commissioner Wiggins is in here.
Okay. The size of the jail versus hospital.
Or versus EMS. Their contact.
I'm sorry, I don't
Okay, you were saying that, Commissioner Eller
Yes,
stated that
when he said part of the reason that he felt like they deserved the money, and this isn't verbatim, was because EMS knew they would come in contact with COVID patients, and they were transporting them and stuck in the vehicle with them for a specific amount of time. I think that would be in comparison to somebody, an officer transporting somebody, and I will tell you, a majority of the people that was seen, when they thought they could get out of jail on a COVID card, they like, I've got COVID. And then at that point, there's different protocols that have to be followed. But I think in comparison, it's about like an officer that's calling somebody that's COVID positive. You have detention officers who can't run away from it, who spend a lot of time in an unventilated area. So it would be like EMS is transporting somebody who is possibly COVID or does have COVID and they sit at the hospital. It's the same avenue that our officers were taking. If that makes sense.
I think you said they had to stay in the units with the COVID patients. Okay, so we've got EMS people in ambulances, but the officers are inside the jail, and the size of that jail, it might be about the same size as the emergency room of Swain County Hospital.
And our numbers have went up. You know, usually we would outsource that, other counties would take them. But, I mean, sometimes they don't have a choice, they pick people up and they don't have a choice to do it, especially if they're active communities. But other community or other counties, their facilities will not take them. They're like, okay, you have COVID, I'm sorry, we cut off all ties with you, you're gonna have to keep your people. Which has stacked our jail completely full over capacity, which makes it worse.
I think I heard you say up to 20.
I was seeing 20 in there,
We've had
32.
32.
32.
8-bed jail. That's a lot forward with it.
I guess to put it a little better, drop these ceilings to about 10 feet from here over. You set 20 day beds in here. And a majority of them have COVID and they don't have a choice to go back and forth. So I think that, and I can't speak on behalf of them, so I'm sorry, and I don't know what their proposals were. I just had a lot of people come talk to me about it, and I think that they deserve the maximum premium they possible.
I can comment as well, from May until mid-November, we have had 31 inmates positive. We had no choice to go back there. I was told we had to wear a hazmat suit, gloves, and a mask if we want to go out in the public. I've coached youth league football for 5 years. I had to tell my assistant coach to stay home because Bev Booth advised he can't go because he didn't wear a suit. So we're limited to, since we work here, we can't go do this and this.
What, Kim?
What's your name?
Jonathan. But at the same time, we was taking blood pressure checks, checking O2, and we're not a hospital, we're a jail. And at that time, we're still doing it to this day. If anyone tests positive, that's what we're doing. We're making sure they're safe and okay. Blood pressure, O2. If it drops so bad, we have to take them to the hospital.
It's really a matter, it's not if they're gonna be exposed, it's every time they go back there, they know they are. When you're gonna get
They're going into a sterile environment. They're basically in jail with COVID.
Thank you.
We'll consider it, so.
We have a lot of discussion to get to, and trust me, we will. I appreciate it.
Just remember, we just got limited amount of money.
1.8. What is it, 1.8?
1.8.
1.8 million? Is that a different payment?
No. I don't think it's.
No, it's,
I talked to Jason, he said that it's pretty close to that.
we got 586,000, we get, two payments, we get 1.172. That's argument.
Okay.
Like, we got 586,000 this spring, and we'll get another 586.
It's increments of each quarter.
I mean, that's the idea thrown out, how it does.
Is it my turn?
Yes.
Well, good morning. I don't feel that transit's any more important than any other employee in Graham County. I feel like every employee should receive a small stipend amount, and then you go by degrees of exposure. That's truly what I believe. But the good news is, I don't need your ARPA funds.
Hallelujah. Give it to somebody else.
And I'm hoping it'll help all the other departments, because I don't need your funds. And by the way, my name's Juanita Calvert. I'm the transit director for anybody who doesn't know me here. But, what I have, I'm not asking for local tax dollars at all. I'm asking for monies that I have in the budget and I'm still receiving in the budget. I just got awarded another $64,000 additional monies for this year in CARES operating. I'm looking at a $274,000 grant right now for CARES operating monies, in addition to all the revenues I'll receive for FY '23. I want to give the transit employees an hourly incentive for every hour worked, but you have to understand with my funding's not like yours. I can't go back to 2020. I can only go June 2nd forward with incentive agreements that we have signed for each hour worked. It cannot include any type of holiday pay, sick leave, annual leave, any kind of benefit pay, jury duty pay, anything to that effect. It's only work time only. That's all it will pay on. This is what our agreement says. Graham County Transit Incentive Agreement. This monetary incentive agreement will become effective on June 2nd, 2021 for services rendered for all employees at Graham County Transit. 2 CFR 200.430F. The incentive during the COVID-19 pandemic will entail an additional $2 per hour for every hour worked. The incentive will not be paid for hours not worked, such as holidays, annual leave, or sick leave, etc., in the performance of your duties due to the exposure and high risk in the performance of your job. This agreement will remain in effect until September 13th, 2021, or the FTA declares CARES Act funds no longer can be utilized for incentives. Additionally, the agreement may be terminated due to Graham County Transit budget restraints at any given time without notice. At the end of the incentive agreement, period salaries will revert to budgeted salaries for each employee with an additional incentive unless a new agreement is put in place and executed. Please acknowledge that you have read and understand this CARES Act incentive agreement by signing below, and they have to have the employee's signature, the date, and the witness and date. And that's what I did, set in place in June. And that's what I want to use. I have the monies to do that. Do I not, Becky?
Yes.
One question.
Yes, sir.
Did you mean September 2022?
No, that was the original agreement that came down, and it's what they sent us. It said September 13, 2021, or the FTA declares they can no longer be utilized, and they've not declared that they can no longer be utilized.
So it's still ongoing.
It's still ongoing, and it was from June 2nd forward.
So if you don't disperse, I mean, it's just hypothetical now, but if it didn't get dispersed till February, it still covers that same time frame.
Yes, but every day we wait, it's looking bad. We should have done it June 2nd. That's the reason I came to you before trying to expend it. I need to expend it, and I don't want to apply for that $274,000 if I can't utilize it, if other systems could. But I don't know why we would hold the transit employees back. There is a high level of exposure. We've had another driver out last week quarantined, another one the week before with quarantined. We've had 4 at this time, or 5. That's had COVID, tested positive for COVID, and it's still an ongoing battle, and the FTA just mandated we go through March 13th now with the mask mandates. No one's allowed on the van without wearing a mask, and that's where I've been, with to label all the some riders where we've been having issues. Hate to deny services, but I will, because it's an FTA mandate. You have to wear that mask at all times, and you can't pull it down. You better leave it on if you want to ride. I mean, that's just, I can't change it. I'm under FTA authority, so that's just the way it is. Any questions?
No, did you accept that, do you need a vote?
Yes.
Okay. To approve your
Yes.
plan? Do I hear a motion?
Motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Thank you.
Thank you, Louise.
And if I could distribute anywhere else, I promise you I would. I couldn't distribute anywhere.
Come back and see us.
I will. I'm glad I got a little bit of light today, sunshine.
Ms. Kim, do you have any questions on that item at all?
No, I heard it.
Okay, just want to make sure.
Okay.
Anything else? All right, we would just move into discussion on what you may want to discuss, or if you got any questions. Mrs. Garland, did you have anything you want to put out?
No, I'm
Okay.
okay.
We'll go from there, see how the board would like for us to proceed with providing those, what we talked about, putting all the numbers together to include as many, if not all, county employees.
I think we'll be looking at a workshop to do that and doing that some thought. Unless these nice folks have any other comments, I would ask, is there any new or old business?
Ms. Kim, do you know of any new or old business? I don't have any.
Do we have anything?
No.
And we don't have anything for close, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Then I'm going to entertain a motion to adjourn.
Are we going to schedule a different workshop? Is that what you're saying? Are we going to schedule another workshop, or we?
We could probably, is our regular meeting next Tuesday?
Negative, it's 2 weeks. It's the 21st. We have to deal with the SS this next
Becky, we
Tuesday.
need to be before
And then
then.
21st.
We could continue this.
We could potentially have some
We
numbers by
could
the
put
Tuesday.
some proposals out if the board has any, broad guidelines you want us to follow. Then that way we could work with those broad guidelines
Okay.
to provide, proposal. I would like to put in place.
Y'all will be here Monday for the, meeting with, Department of Treasury. You got Monday? We'll share that in some.
What time?
9:30.
9:30.
9:30 if we need to. We could,
I think it's an informational session, with the Department of Treasury, State Treasurer, changes in reporting and, changes in how local government commissions work. They're making some pretty sweeping changes in how we, handle. It's more of, procedural changes in how we handle submitting audits and reporting on audits.
You planning to come? You planning
Yeah, I'm
to?
gonna talk to Sharon.
Okay. So we could meet after that.
yeah.
Even if you don't talk for
If that's enough time.
If you'll be getting enough time to Jason to come up with the proposals on the different aspects of the map.
Would that give you enough time, Becky? And would
Between now
give
and
you enough
Monday.
time to come up with a proposal?
I don't think I will, I'll be honest.
Okay. I think we have two things.
I mean, I know y'all had some discussion,
Right, but not thorough, and I think we'll need to be in close, we will be talking personnel.
I think we have two topics. One is the salaries. That to me is a separate topic from the
Right.
ARPA money. I'd like to see the salary thing implemented as soon as we can do that. And I had thoughts on the ARPA funds, but after listening to the rest of, I'm having to rethink that a little bit, because I do agree with this.
Yeah, I
I
think
don't
we
know
know.
anybody that's had more exposure than the detention officer. And, so I want to make sure that we can do everything that we can. I don't know how much money we have available, how long will it take you to figure those things out?
I mean, we've got $266,000
$256,000.
that's left in the fund.
When we did the EMS payment, we went back to January 1, 2020, and we ran that through July 1 of 2021. That was the time frame that we used for them. I think especially for the detention officers and the deputies, that timeframe's gonna have to be extended. At least that's what I'd like to do, because their incidents with COVID have been more over the last 6 to 9 months than they were a year ago. So I'd like to see it come through the end of November at least. And as we already know, the sheriff experienced a 40% turnover during that time period, is that right? And they jail 25, 20 something. So we need to get a list of the employees that fall into those timeframes, and then calculate up what we have and what we want to try to do. So I think that would be something that we'll work on Monday, but I want to get the salary plan as soon as we can get that worked out for not just the sheriff, but the detention officers and for
Yeah, I hear you
one.
say that would not be Friday. This is Friday, isn't it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
and that meeting Monday is 9:30 to 12 each.
Right.
It's gonna be pretty much all morning for that one Monday, right?
We might need another day or two to.
We'll get some lunch and
Yeah, after lunch, you got to be here.
let's get it done. I got 3 meetings already on my thing for Monday afternoon. Oh,
Okay, I'm still asking the finance officer if that's gonna give you time.
I want to make sure I'm understanding.
Numbers.
Monday would be about the pay plan, right?
Joe?
Or just, or the,
whatever, I mean,
I mean,
And you were talking
I'll
about,
be gone by 10:30 Monday. I'll be at an appointment that I'll have made for 2 months.
I think you were talking ARPA, with the letting the ARPA fund we were talking about.
Yeah, we need to figure out what to do with the ARPA money. That's, the salary implementation, I think we just need to decide what else we're gonna get to and go with it to be done with.
I'm gonna suggest that we do another day.
Okay.
I want the full board here for
Yeah,
the discussion, and it will be, a lot of it will be closed session. And I would just prefer to proceed and also give Becky and Jason a little bit more time, especially the finance officer. I don't want to rush through this in any way, and I don't want to make a mistake. I want to get it right to the best of all of our abilities, and that's putting all of our heads together, giving us plenty of time to discuss and look at what we need to do and what we can do. So let's,
Mr. Cody, what's your schedule next week? I know it's difficult for you to get a day off.
I'm supposed to be off today. I had to go in at 4 o'clock this morning.
Up with you.
so tentatively, right?
Just whichever day is what, I'll put it down. I'll just cut my phone off and say, don't even call.
We'll talk about it Monday morning. I'll be here at 10:30
So
Monday.
decide on a date Monday morning.
Yeah, that's good.
that good with you and Becky? Okay.
Yeah, because I mean, I wanna make sure that I'm not missing anything.
Yes.
And I've got grants and trying to finalize the audit, got a punch list on finalizing the audit this morning. And, if my mind is spread out, it's never a good thing. I need to be able to focus.
Yeah, and we certainly need to focus on these two things that we need, plan and ARPA distribution, so. And I for one want to get it right.
We'll continue this meeting to Monday,
Continue to 9:30 Monday morning,
9:30.
okay?
I'll make a
And
motion
we
to
won't
that.
adjourn, we're just continuing this meeting.
I'll make a motion to that.
Kim, you have a question?
I thought, is that when Karen Anderson is coming?
She
It is.
She'll be here at 9:30.
Does that need to be a separate
So
meeting?
we can't have it? Yeah, she'll be coming from the state, we'll name it at the same time.
Okay.
So adjourn this meeting. Kim?
Yeah, let's just adjourn it, and then I can send out stuff to see what day, if it's gonna meet on Tuesday before the event, that would be, you want, you wanna meet around 2:30, before the event, if you think it's take about, the event, it starts at 5:30, on Tuesday.
Well, we can do it after if we have to, because DSS is not gonna be more than an hour.
Right, whichever way you wanna do it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Ken, for keeping us straight. So I will entertain a motion to adjourn this meeting.